Hello, hi. Y'all, this is my very first live stream on YouTube. So this is my chance to kind of figure out what I'm doing, if it's working. And I planned absolutely nothing for this. And that's important to me because everything else that I put out online on my podcast is very, very curated. It's edited. The only thing I do that's a little looser maybe is on my Patreon once a month. And I want to do that here on YouTube. Part of who I am, I've been a therapist for 18 years. I have all those clinical credentials. I have worked in lots of different settings. I have worked in hospital psych wards. I've worked in intensive outpatient and residential addiction treatment. In 2009, I hung my own shingle and started working for myself. Part of why I did the show Emotional Badass was because when clients were leaving my office, they would just say to me sort of nonchalantly, hey, you should really have a show. That is never something that I would have thought of. I am a very strong introvert, and being on here, having an online presence seems very opposite to that. Like maybe I'm full of it and that's not true. I think we're entering a time where we really need mentorship. We need to be able to see each other. Hi, Vanessa from the UK. Oh, it's good to know somebody is here. Hi. Oh, I'm so glad you like the reels. That's a big change we've made this last year. I've been doing Emotional Badass since 18? This is our 6th year. And we hadn't really done any real social media. We've just done the show and had a lot of success immediately. We hit top 10 and top 50 in our first year in the iTunes charts for mental health. And finally, this past year, our 5th year, we started doing some social media. I went to my first podcasting conference. Podcasting feels to me like the wild, wild west. I never had any intention to get all the way to here when I was working on my degrees in school. And I realized at that podcasting convention that almost all of the other podcasters, they were influencers. They had already built up huge followings on Instagram or TikTok or here on YouTube. And I was really the weirdo there. I was the outlier. Let's see, Vanessa says, you also remind me of this cool actress on independent film. Hope that's not offensive. I love her. I can't think of her name, but a compliment. Oh no. Well, Vanessa, I'm not easily offended. And I take that as a compliment. I think that's kind of cool in the human condition, how we're all super, super different and unique, but also we're all the same. And I like how we can see different aspects of different people in other people. I think that's part of the beauty of this human condition. Hi, Mountain Guido. I'm glad 2 of you are here. Hi. So I'm gonna use this to share more of myself and try to step more into that. Oh, I'm so glad I'm engaging. I want to step more into that space of sharing myself, being a traditional counselor. I followed all the rules. I teach people boundaries. In part, that's because I've crossed a lot of them and worked within the necessity of growing into boundaries. So many clinical counseling boundaries are so strict and so rigid. I have a pretty dysfunctional family, and I work with people who come from very dysfunctional family systems, helping them make sense and find peace and let go of anxiety. Those strict boundaries are something that I agree with for certain populations, but for people who had very abusive family systems, very neglectful family systems, I find it very unhealthy that mental health has created the expectation that you're supposed to show up at a professional's office and go, oh, I trust you very much because, oh, you went to school. Or I trust you very much because you have a bunch of letters behind your name, which indicates in our society you have some kind of expertise. This work for me is less clinical. It's less, I very much follow science and look at research, but it has to be a marriage of research-based, scientifically studied things and healing, growth, self-development, becoming a person that lets go of their maladaptive crap that holds us back and keeps us away from our joy, our goals. That's an art form. So I hope that I'm one of the mental health professionals out there that is marrying that human element. I think we learned so much from other people sharing their stories and sharing their vulnerability. And I would like to be a part of a movement that teaches and models for other therapists that there are artful ways to share your story without being the kind of therapist that takes over the session. Like, let me tell you about myself. There's an art form to using our human experience to help other people in their human experience. Oh. Yep, Vanessa says, wow, that's my whole issue from a child. My mother, NPD and borderline. I have complex PTSD. Well, you were part of my tribe, Vanessa. I am of the opinion that most of what most people are struggling with would fit more of a complex PTSD. Because when we have post-traumatic stress, I thought I would have lifelong chronic post-traumatic stress from growing up in a house with abusers. I was abandoned by my biological father. And what I have done, I'll be 44 this year, and it's taken me a long time, not because I wasn't doing my work or working hard on it, because it takes a long time to heal a nervous system. A very long time to heal a nervous system, in part because our systems are so good at learning things. So when my system learned to be on guard all the time, because I wasn't raised with enough safety or consideration or emotionally intelligent people that were willing to be vulnerable and guide me into emotion, our bodies respond to that. And a lifetime of having complex PTSD, the body is so tight. The body is so on guard. There's a lot of art in teaching this body something new, that it's okay and safe, even within the things that are unsafe in this world, the unknowns that we are tasked to step into. We really can heal a body. We can get our bodies to a place where we're not in constant hypervigilance, where we are learning to see the beauty and the safety, the growth potential, the compatibility with other people or the incompatibility. We learn to let go of people pleasing. All of this comes together. I'm a former yoga teacher. That's one of the things I've done in this life. And the thing about being a yoga teacher is I got the gift of watching so many people work on a yoga pose, like let's say a headstand, and work on it in a way of deep belief of, my body can't do this. I'm never going to get here. What is the point of this? Why should I even try? And I was able to hold space for so many as a teacher with the body to say, all you have to do is practice right where you are. Just meet yourself right where you are. Some of the most beautiful moments for me have been with clients or yoga students in that exact moment. It's going to make me tear up. I'm an easy crier. You'll learn that about me if you follow my stuff. That moment where a human being sees themselves do something, maybe it's calm themselves, maybe it's not going to panic, maybe it's finally be able to lift your legs into that headstand. To me, that is the most glorious, most beautiful, most right human moment that we are supposed to have. And our lives get to be this experience of seeing ourselves overcome and do things that our younger self thought we couldn't. When we embrace that and go after that in the human experience, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. It's part of why I've loved this work for almost 18 years, and I'm so grateful to have found it as my life path early on. Let's see what y'all are saying. Hi, Liv. I'm glad that you're here. Thank you for being here. Vanessa says, I'm 48 this year. I'm so traumatized. I sometimes freeze mode and dissociate for days on end. I used to dissociate very, very strongly. I lost a lot of time. I promise you, Vanessa, It always takes longer than it seems like it should, than we want it to. But if you can find patience, real patience for yourself in the process, with a trust that you can get there, that's part of why I share my story. And if you don't think you can get there, that's okay. We have parts of our psychology that have that adolescent eye roll energy, like, yeah, right. We have the critical voice that tries to protect us by not letting us get hopeful of things, kind of bites us in the booty that way. But I'm someone that I can hold that for you, even without meeting you out real life in person. I believe you can do it, and I can hold that for you. And you can say to yourself, well, Nikki thinks I can do it. Nikki's done it herself. Nikki helps other people figure out how to do this. Why wouldn't I be able to figure this out? Such a big part of resiliency is giving yourself some permission to believe that even what feels and seems impossible is possible for you. It's exactly why I decided to take my introverted self and do this very extroverted thing, because I didn't have anybody in my world as I was on my journey at 16 and 20 and 22 and 25 to show me what was possible in my healing. So it felt like I was spinning my wheels, like I didn't know if what I was doing would ever pay off. And I think that's a layer of desperation that is so unfortunate, so useless in any kind of positive way, and only makes us feel heavier and in more of the struggle. Let's see. Good. Somatic healing is fantastic. So if you don't know what somatic healing is and you're listening to this now live or later, this is a very oversimplified explanation. But somatic healing is about paying attention to what's going on in our bodies. One of my beefs with general mental health, because I do have some real angers, some real disagreements with a lot of what is mainstream in mental health. So much of it is heady, which makes sense because it's a heady professional pursuit. People get PhDs. I don't have my PhD. I would not pursue a PhD if someone said they were paying for my school. I have an undergraduate degree in psychology. I have a master's degree in counseling. So much of what is in mental health is so heady. It's information. The joke that I give a lot of the time is that a lot in our mental health boils down to people they read, they listen to podcasts, they get more information, they Google things online. This is essentially like reading books about growing your muscles. Maybe you've read 10 books about growing your muscles, and then you go look in the mirror and you get really upset. You look at your muscles and you're like, what is going on? What is wrong with me that my muscles won't grow? I see so many people who say to themselves, Nikki, I've read all the things. I've done all the things. I've listened to all the podcasts, and I still can't get my body to feel what my mind knows is right and okay for me to feel. Well, we can't do our mental health like this muscle example I'm giving you. And I think because I have spent, my joke is that I've done more therapy on both sides of the chair than anyone on the planet. I'm sure there's a few people out there that have been on the vulnerable side of the therapist chair more than I have. But when you've been on both sides of that chair, I have felt very, very frustrated trying to get my answers met as a younger person with therapists who wouldn't really tell me how. They would tell me what to do, not to take something personally, is a great example. But I had no concept of how. Okay, I'm not supposed to take things personally. How do I do that? What is the actual muscle building weights that I have to do? What do I do to actually do this? And I found that a lot of therapists, in my personal experience, didn't know how to get from information in the head to actually giving it to someone in a way that they can digest in the department of doing, so that their muscles can grow, their emotional resiliency muscles could grow and expand. These are the things that I try to share and everything that I put out there into this internet land. Let's see, Liv says, so glad to be here, can relate on the yoga. Oh, wait, I missed this. Let's go up to Vanessa. Vanessa said, let's see, isn't it crazy that Christians call yoga demonic? I grew up in New Orleans as a Catholic. I grew up being taught anything that isn't the Catholic religion is demonic, is wrong, could possess you. That's kind of a controlling religious thing to get us to not explore, to feel ashamed or scared or frightened away from exploration. And I think anything that is real and true should be able to withhold examination. If you follow my show a lot, you'll hear me say this very often. Disagree with me. Don't believe things just because I'm telling you this is a thing. Experiment in your own life. Use your own critical thinking. Explore in your way. And if it works for you, awesome. And if it doesn't, toss it out the window. I don't very much believe in there being one right. I think there's lots of wrong ways to do a lot of things, but there are also so many different right ways. And we're all similar, but we're all different and unique. And this life takes a lot of experimentation, not risky, dangerous experimentation, but smart, strategic, well thought out, useful exploration. Let's see. Liv is saying, so glad to be here. Can relate on the yoga. Only been doing it for 1 year, but it has brought me so many positives in my life. I'm glad you're out there tearing up with me, Vanessa. Yeah, I'm always here online to tear up with anybody who wants to tear up together. As sensitive people, we do ourselves a great service if we start embracing our sensitivity instead of behaving outwardly for the world or internally with our own self-talk in an apologetic way. I tear up because I'm a passionate person. I tear up because I genuinely care. I tear up because I know that I'm saying things that if and when the right people connect to them, it's that little nugget that gives them what they need in that moment, in that day. And so much of our lives are stringing together those little nuggets of wisdom that just help us live just a little bit better, with a little bit more ease, a little bit more peace, a little bit more patience, a little bit more understanding, a little bit more self-compassion, which is the birthplace of outward compassion for other people. Vanessa says, I know it's that block, like your mind is in a cage. I'm not going to pull my pants up right now, but sometimes people are really shocked. I think it's easy to make assumptions about people too, and I tend to not really fit into anyone's assumptions. So sometimes people are really shocked to learn that I'm a fairly heavily tattooed person. I just don't have any in the realm where you can kind of see up here. The big 20-hour piece that I have on my left thigh, that's my biggest piece. My artist was actually Nate Beavers. He actually, I think a year after doing my tat, was on Ink Masters. I think he came in second. Is me, I'm a bird, and I have the key in my bird mouth, and I have a big open cage on my left thigh with a big moon behind it. Let's see. Because we are not caged. Though the feelings, that's where the feelings can be liars. Sometimes our feelings are liars. None of us are caged. None of us are caged. And if you have felt super duper caged, like that was some kind of death sentence, like that was just the destiny of your life, that is total and utter crap. That is not real. That is just your critical voice. That is that voice that's scared to get hopeful because it doesn't know how to handle disappointment. So it tells you to not ever get hopeful, to try to manage future disappointment, which is kind of sucky because then you don't ever get to feel hopeful. Yes, the body does keep the score. So I grew up keeping a secret of childhood abuse, and I've had jaw surgeries, some of which are botched. I deal with managing chronic pain up here, and that makes sense. I felt the weight of the world, especially as the eldest sibling in a family where I did a lot of mothering to my siblings. So our body does keep the score, y'all. Sometimes for Westerners who first learn that idea, it's very shocking. You might feel your wheels up here turn on that, trying to make sense. So much about Western medicine and mental health practices really gives us the impression like we're just walking head knowledge, and then our bodies are this separate thing, but they're so interconnected. Our body holds things. Our body keeps the score, as the title of that very famous book. Vanessa says, I have huge amounts of cortisol production, can't lose the weight. Yep. When I used to be less than 7 stone when in an abusive household. You might really like my Peace course, Vanessa. It's one of the things that I have that's open. Another cohort will go through on the 1st of March, the 1st of every month in 2024 is how we're doing it. It's exactly why I have it, because we have to teach our bodies peace. And most people don't go into a therapist's office and go, help me be more peaceful. We tend to focus on the problem. And so those are the muscles that I want people who resonate with me understanding that they get to work. It's not just the muscles of, ooh, I want to manage my anxiety. Ooh, I need to eat well to manage depression. I need to make myself get out of bed. It's also, I get to practice peace. I get to teach my body what it is to be peaceful. See, we don't want to wait for the external world to get peaceful and then I get to get peaceful. We don't want to wait until everything lines up in my life and isn't so stressful. Then I get to be peaceful. That is a mindset and a plan that will have you never able to feel peace. So how do we learn peace? We practice. We practice. Even right now, if you want to with me, I invite you, hand on the heart, hand on the belly. Let your shoulders go down away from the ears. And just take a deep breath, letting yourself know right now in this moment, everything is good. Everything is so good and chill. You were able to be on a live stream in the middle of the day, a YouTube live. And right there in that moment, it's as if our psychology goes, wait a minute, so you don't want me to have cortisol pumping through, stress hormones pumping through at every second of the day? Yes, traumatized part of me. Because we had to live that every day of our little life or every day in a dysfunctional relationship. Part of getting out and away from that is realizing, not just up here in the thinker, but realizing in the body that it is okay to feel safe. It is right to feel safe. In fact, it's necessary to be healthy and healing with our own bodies. It's necessary. And that cortisol that constantly runs through a hypervigilant body, you know that doesn't work at all to keep a bad thing from happening. Part of it is learning to trust that if a bad, terrible, awful thing happens that none of us want to happen, you really can survive it. You can replace that constant hypervigilant cortisol response with a trust that you can handle whatever comes up, even when you don't want to. And that will help you have the energy that will help you not be so burnt out physically from adrenal fatigue, so that whatever the life thing is that comes, you'll actually have the energy to handle it. That's the tricky catch-22 of that hypervigilance. It doesn't really help us out. And it's a consequence of our bodies and minds being so smart. When we grew up in trauma, it learned, because you're smart. Hey, watch out for trauma at every second, at every turn. That was the best we could do as kids. Adulthood has to mean a different way of being than when we were children. That has to be the difference. Yep. And that is what we're doing when we say healing. We are actually learning the nuance and the conversation between mind and body, heart, gut, to no longer have it be trapped in ourselves, to actually release it, to process it and release it. Yeah, people who can feel other people's pain, we're empathic. Lots of people say that, oh, trauma is what causes high sensitivity and every empath is a highly sensitive person. Yes, I'm fully on board with that. Trauma, struggle, life sending us a lot of stressful waves, like waves of the ocean, and wave after wave after wave that knocks us down before we can stand up and kind of get our bearings again. Oh, I lost my train of thought. All right, I'll pick it up. This is how life goes. Aw. There's so much healing for you. Yes. Liv says the Peace Course is amazing. Thank you, Liv. Good. I'm glad you're giving yourself a cuddle. That's right. It is a vicious cycle. Mm-hmm. Our bodies are amazing. And all we're doing in healing is teaching it, hey, it's peaceful now. We get to learn patience. Patience is one of those things. Again, nobody really walks in their therapist's office and goes, I recognize I need to learn patience. That was a big one for me, is realizing, in a dysfunctional family system, and I've worked with well over 1,000 family systems. I never want to over exaggerate that. It's a few thousand, likely. I have never met a very dysfunctional family that was great with patience. So across the board, we do well if we recognize that and go, I do need to show up practicing patience for myself, for all the healing I get to do. All right, Mountain Guido, I love your name. Let's see. Trying to find peace and happiness externally or from events creates a never-ending search. I've learned from you it has to start from within. Then the good things happen externally. I'm so glad you've picked that up. Yes, that is exactly right. The fancy term for that in my field is internal locus of control versus external. And when they study this, typically in older people, what they study and see is that, external locus of control people have more dissatisfaction, less happiness. Internal locus of control, and locus of control just means the center of control. It's like, where do I want my control center to be? What's unfortunate and what has gotten worse in my lifetime, in the past 10 years in particular, is that American culture is encouraging an external locus of control through social media. When are people happy? When their highlight reel looks amazing, when they get another car, they get that new car, they get that house. It's always going to feel great and amazing to get external things that we want. We don't have to make luxury things or fun items that we want, clothes that look good on us. We don't have to make any of that bad. We just have to understand that that kind of good feeling is fleeting. It's like empty calories with not a lot of nutritional value. Yeah, that stuff is fun to eat sometimes, but it's not the nutrient-rich stuff that's really going to sustain us and nurture our physicality. Internal locus of control is, I'm not going to wait on external life before I give myself permission for joy. So I want my joy, my goodness, my peace to come from me. Always feels good to get it from another person. But if I don't learn to internalize that, it makes me dependent and desperate in a moment of struggle to get that from another person. I don't need that type of desperation. I can both have a support network, I can have a support system, I can indulge in externals that feel good to me, and I can know that I work on my self-talk, I become my own cheerleader, I become my own best support. Thank you, Liv. I'm not even sure what that is called. The blue box with the pink heart. Thank you very, very much. Oh, it's a super. Yay, this is my first super on a live stream, y'all. Thank you very, very much. All right. Oh, Karen, I missed. Let's see. Karen said, hi, Karen. I know from experience, if you are your true self, you will trouble others. It is very difficult at the beginning, but gets easier and starts to feel great. It really, really does. So this is the first year. I've taught it for, I think last year was my 9th year in a row. I'm taking a break this year in 2024. In 2025, we will promote my boundaries course again. That is probably the hardest thing in learning boundaries, is that when we are boundaried, other people do not like it. When we are who we are, our true self, we hold up mirrors. Now, being the type of person I am, I'm a seeker. This is my life. mental health and wellness and doing good. But also, when people meet me in my personal life, no one would know that I'm a therapist. I don't wear that as a persona in my personal life. But I'm very truth speaking. I'm very honest because I've learned that honesty eliminates a lot of drama. It eliminates a lot of wasted energy in a relationship. It's also a way for me to test people out. When I am boldly honest, like, hey, you asked me out to eat and you asked what we wanted, and I said Italian. And now that we're here getting Italian, it seems like you're upset and you really wanted Chinese. I'm giving that person an opportunity to show me more about who they are. By my honesty, I hold up a mirror and go, hey, is this really how you want to relate to me? When I'm honest. The right people for me in my world, personally and professionally, is the honest truth. Are the ones that when I hold up that mirror, they go, oh, yeah, I didn't realize I was giving off that vibe. You're right. Sorry about that. I can be totally happy with Italian so that we can talk it out. In that moment, I can look at them and say, hey, it would have been cool to go get Chinese food. Please don't ask me a question if you don't want my answer. I would have been A-okay with Chinese food too. I love when people speak up and give me their truth. I'd much rather you tell me, no, I don't want Italian, than yes, 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 in a false way to me. I want honest relationships. I grew up with a lot of manipulation. There's a fine line there. I don't want to be so hyper vigilant about, humans making little white lies that I run away or trigger my nervous system because somebody, is wanting Chinese when we're eating Italian, something that's not a big deal. But I also want to advocate for truth and honesty. And I want to be truth and honesty in how I relate. See, a lot of sensitive people, this is where it gets tricky and we get sticky in dysfunctional things. A lot of sensitive people want other people to give them permission to be their honest, true, sensitive self. A lot of sensitive people walk the world going, will you please just be respectful of me in their energy? When the truth is they haven't learned how to respect themselves. So when y'all see me tear up or hear me on the podcast tear up and just allow that without an apology, that's me trying to show the truth of who I am, but also show you for me to be in respect of myself, which is the way that we get respect from others. I don't want to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry is for when I do something wrong. So if I'm emoting because I feel, what's wrong about that? Oh, it makes other people uncomfortable? There's the people pleasing that hides inside of us. I promise you, as an almost 20-year therapist, not one person has ever died in witnessing somebody else be emotional. It's okay. If I make somebody uncomfortable, they're uncomfortable because I'm tearing up. I learn how to not take that personally, how to not shrink who I am because somebody else has feelings. We don't do a great job in this country, even now, teaching people how to really have their emotion. All right, let's see. So when I teach boundaries, that's where I was going earlier. It's one of the things that comes up in that course every single time. Excuse me. But people aren't going to like it. The deep fear and the reason we people please and don't have boundaries is because we're scared of people leaving us. I lost lots of people on the boundaries journey. They didn't use these words, but the messaging that I received from people was, hey, it really worked for me when you were more of a doormat and you just let me kind of take advantage of you. I don't know that I like this whole self-respect, Nikki, that's not letting me do that. In that moment, that person is telling me they're not my person. I might be a very good friend for them. They might not be able to be a very good friend for me. Learning boundaries and things like self-respect, these are not light switches that we just switch because we read a book. You don't just turn that on because you hear me say this one time, like right here. Being healthy with ourselves and other people, it's like learning a foreign language. It helped me to admit that to myself, that I basically was coming out of a very dysfunctional family that had so much convoluted communication and interaction and passive aggressiveness and untruthfulness that really I had to learn almost a whole new language. Same English words, but in a way, a whole new language to relate to myself through, as well as everybody else. Hi, Deb. Let's see. Deb says, when I started putting up boundaries, I lost people and family. That's how I knew I needed to uphold those boundaries. That's right. One of the most beautiful things is after you lose the people that were using or abusing or stepping on you, what starts to happen is you make space for, I'm going to say it like this, a higher quality person, one that's willing to grow into or be a human being acting from a higher emotional intelligence. You know, nobody likes being told no. There's not a human on earth that says anything that is 100% comfortable with a no. Because if we're sharing something, if I invite you to do something, I definitely want to hear a yes. But a healthy request, hey, you want to go have lunch with me on Saturday? If we are to be in integrity in terms of having a healthy request with someone, then we have to understand and grow up into the maturity of the other person has to always have a right to say yes or no. Or I'm not really asking them a question. I'm offering them something and I'm going to punish them if they say no. In energy, in word, in cold shoulder, in attitude. So when I teach boundaries, I ask the class to really consider that everybody shows up to learn boundaries in terms of setting boundaries with other people. It's also true that individually and as a society, man, do we need to do some work in receiving boundaries, learning how to tolerate when someone gives us a strong, healthy, no, I don't want to do that. Frankly, it's weird that that is some kind of threat to the average person. Oh, what? You don't like me? It shouldn't hold any other meaning other than I invited you to do a thing. You said no, that didn't work for your life, or you didn't want to do it. Period. We're overthinking if we put more story on that than just allowing it to be a no. And if somebody gives me a super passive aggressive, nasty no, cool. I don't have to do anything about that. That person just showed me that they don't know how to receive a no, that they made an offer to me in kind of a controlling way. Like there was a right answer and a wrong answer, and I failed. I got an F on their test. I don't want to be tested in communication. I suspect you don't want to be either. So we have to do our work to not test other people in such a way. All right, let me see what you guys are saying. Yes, I love that y'all are connecting with each other. That's what I love about doing this. You know, if we're highly sensitive people, we're 15 to 20% of the population. That's the estimate. So when I get to pull people together in a group, the truth is it may be the first, it may be one of the only times that we've ever been in a room with mostly other highly sensitive people. And you will feel that. You'll feel that even seeing the comments. Now, especially on YouTube, the more I put myself out there, you will see nasty comments too. People comment on my blinking. They comment on me saying y'all, that I sound like a hillbilly. You'll see all the nasty comments because it's the internet and it's life and humans. But when you see the real comments, not the snarky, pokey comments, you'll see people really aligning, connecting, seeing themselves in each other. It really is easier to manipulate a broken person. I'm highly aware that part of what I'm putting out there in the world is how sensitive people can become anti-manipulable. We need to learn how to not let people manipulate us. There is never going to be a world where there aren't people trying to get what they can get out of other people. It's just part of the human condition. Hi, philosophy. Let's see. I always as well worry that my emotions, the discomfort might be irrational, and I really should be grateful and do what the person asks. And if I say I can't, they will not understand. They may not understand. When we're taking care of ourselves, you know, there's a vibe that we can give other people or other people can give us. sensitive people tend to be over explainers. You know, one of the most powerful things that I ever saw was I was at some kind of women's workshop, and it was like a free workshop. And just like all of that stuff, that's a way to meet a professional, to kind of taste and sample what they're doing. And then they're making a living. So they have another offering where that's where they make their living, to be able to give their time in this free way. So it was a free event. And someone said, hey, do you have a resource? Do you have any kind of piece of paper for the thing that you mentioned? Something that I could take away from this? And that woman looked at her and she smiled and she said, no. And then she smiled and she looked around the room and you could see all the women starting to squirm. And she looked at everybody and she said, no, that's not available for free. That's available at this price point. And if you want that, you'll have to go here and get this. And she looked at the room and she said, if that kind of simple no makes you really uncomfortable, you have a lot of work to do with no. She was speaking to entrepreneurs who were highly sensitive, especially if you want to be an entrepreneur, especially if you're going to put yourself out there. I would make the argument, if you're going to be a reasonably energied person and be at least somewhat willing to manage your own energy, you're going to have to tell other people no. People who go, cool, thank you for the no. Very self-respecting, awesome. And people who give you a passive-aggressive, nasty, how dare you, who do you think you are, shaming response to your no. You're going to have to learn how to be true to yourself and have really clear, powerful yeses and really clear, powerful no's, and know that a no is not an FU. And if somebody receives something that you send as an FU when that's not what you sent, that's a them problem, and it's not on you to fix. Yes, philosophy is saying, but I think that comes from expecting that everyone will react in a childish, immature way, as my mother always did. So I think you're onto something bigger than what you're even saying here. One of my theories, after being in this field for 20 years and seeing how the world has changed since I went to college to now, COVID stuff in there too, I think part of what the internet has done, part of what some changes in parenting practice has done, is really encouraged a lot of immaturity. You know, more than ever, I have people saying to me, whether it's about their own children or other people's children, man, this person in my life is 25, but they feel 15. We are living through a lot of immaturity. So it may be more likely than ever that we might get an immature backlashing sort of response. That's not fair. It's not healthy. It's not right. I wish that were different, but we can accept what we can't control, because I can't make somebody show up differently. I can't make somebody want to emotionally grow up past that kind of reaction. But I can stop me being in a state of confusion when that happens. Maybe it is something about me. Did I screw? So many sensitive people will live in this land of confusion and go, I'm so confused. You're not confused. You knew what you wanted to say. You said it. The other person didn't like it. And they're throwing you some funky energy because they don't like what you did. You're not confused. So we can learn how to support ourselves in lots of different, simple, but profoundly powerful ways that help us learn to stay true to ourselves in the best of energies that we receive from other people and in the funkiest. Vanessa says, blinking, you're not a lizard. Yes, that has been the shock of me doing more on social media where people can see me, is how many people have responded wondering if I'm a real person or if I'm AI. That is scary, because it means that we are entering a time where I could talk about emotional things, nuanced things, and we don't know if it's an AI, fake something, or a real person. I think in the next couple of years, it's going to be increasingly important to really have lives like this. If you're listening and connecting with people online, really getting outside of this internet world and really making sure that we are connecting with what is truly real. Lauren says, hi, Lauren. Lauren May says, some people have to project the nastiness they have inside because they can't comprehend honest honesty and vulnerability. That's exactly right. The wisdom that you share in that comment, Lauren May, is so life-changing. When someone's nasty with you, to be able to sit in that moment, which is undoubtedly hard if you have a body that panics, if you struggle with post-traumatic stress type symptoms, but it will get better over time. And the task is to learn how to sit in that energy and not absorb it. We're spongy as highly sensitive people. We absorb it and then it goes in our head and we think in a confusing thought cloud storm. It's learning how to be in that moment of somebody's nastiness and really sit with compassion and go, my goodness, for somebody to be that nasty, they must be in so much pain. We don't have to absorb it. We can learn, and I know this sounds a little woo-woo, but we can learn how to feel that energy come at us, because that person is launching that energy at us. They want us to absorb that energy, not on a conscious level, but on a subconscious level. Of course, they want to get rid of it. The only way they might figure out how to get rid of it is sending it to somebody else. But we don't have to absorb it. So we learn to stand in our own strength. We can visualize a bubble around ourselves, and that funkiness just bounces off and goes right back. It's not mine. It's not mine. And when we meet somebody's nastiness with self-compassion, it's not letting them off the hook. It's helping our own bodies not get hooked into that funky feeling. All right, let's see. Mountain Guido says, I had to practice saying no for years until it felt comfortable. Yeah, y'all, any of these psychological patterns that we have found ourselves in, particularly if our parenting was personality disordered or very, very immature or lacking, y'all, we didn't develop these things overnight. We didn't even develop them in 1 year. Of course, we're not on fire about the idea that we're going to have to practice this stuff for years and years, but I hope I can bring a peacefulness to that idea instead of a, oh, really, Nikki? Really? This is going to take that long? Of course it is. It took a whole development into my 20s for me to fully get that gold medal and being dysfunctional. Of course, it's taken years. And in some aspects, it's going to take a lifetime. There are some things I will work on all the days of my life. Like a critical voice, my mother was highly critical. I mean, nasty critical, constantly, with almost no warmth to her, real ice queen. So I have to know about myself that in a way, that was like my original language. My original speaking language is English. If you're an English speaker and you've ever known like someone who's French or Mexican who speaks Spanish, they tend to think in their original language, even if they're pretty darn fluent in English. In some ways, my original language was critical. So I have to know about myself that especially in times of stress, that old program is going to try to run. So if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired, if I've had a lot of life thrown at me, I have to know, okay, that voice might creep back in and I don't have to listen to it. I don't have to re-engage it. I don't have to look to it like, oh, what? You want to be nasty to me right now in my head? Let me pull up a chair and sit there for this. I can reject it. There's a piece in not accepting in some kind of victim-y way, like, oh, I'm always going to be hurt by this. But there's a piece in, okay, I can understand how that was a part of my development. And so I can be grateful that now I can know that and I can work with that. That's the essence of taking care of yourself. That's the kind of parenting you likely wanted and didn't get. I use the term reparenting a lot. We're reparenting and reprogramming. Yes, let's see. Projection is a biggie. Yep, we internalize it as if it's about us. That's what you no longer need to do. You let it bounce off of your bubble. No more mindless sponging, only intentional sponging up. Good job, y'all. Let's see, Liv says, I'm still learning to create boundaries and reminding myself that it's still okay if I mess up. here and there, as long as I keep going and keep learning from it. That's right. That's right. My eyes are watering. I live at almost 9,000 feet in Colorado. It's very dry. That's part of why I'm so blinky. It really is okay to mess up here and there. I think sometimes if we had hard parenting or hard childhood stuff, there was so much adult messing up around us that a lot of us subconsciously go, I'm going to grow up and be an adult and I'm just never going to mess up anything. And then I'll never have to feel bad and I'll never have to disappoint anybody. It's a very precious, very pure inner child part of us that I believe decides that very, very long ago. And psychologically, we still operate on it. So we can just let that sweet inner child know, you know what? Actually, mistakes are necessary. Mistakes are right. Now, not making mistakes intentionally, but when real honest mistakes happen, that's okay. And it's an opportunity to own it. It's an opportunity to acknowledge, and it's an opportunity to look and go, all right, what can I learn from this so that I can do better next time so that I don't make the same mistake again? In a way that is uplifting and light, not shame, shame, punish, punish, bad, bad. Is there anything else y'all want to say? I'm glad I didn't plan anything for this. We might do these every now and then. Thank y'all so much. If it's mid-workday, I hope the rest of your workday is so light and easy. And if you're new to me and just finding me, I offer lots. We have the show Emotional Badass. We have the Patreon, and we could not do the show without our Patreon people. Light and love. Good night, y'all. Goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye. Until next time. Good luck, everybody, with your healing. Keep at it. Don't give up. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.